The palace council chamber was nothing like the throne room. Gone was the grandeur, the glowing domes, the living gardens beneath glass floors. This was a place of shadows and silent obsidian walls etched with ancient glyphs, the air heavy with history and consequence. Here, decisions were made that shaped not just Nerithia, but the galaxy beyond its starlit borders. Corral stood beside Kira. Lumina nestled at their feet, watching the assembled members of the High Council file in with cautious eyes and unreadable faces. The triad bond was still fresh in his mind, pulsing gently in the back of his skull, a comforting presence of her thoughts alongside his own. But the vision they had shared during the ceremony had left him cold. Something ancient was moving, and it had been manipulating them all for a very long time. King Fisher sat at the head of the crescent-shaped table, his expression carved from stone. "You claim to have seen this threat through the bond?" "Yes," Kira said without hesitation. "It was more than a vision. It was an intrusion. And it confirmed what we've long suspected, but never proved. Our enemies are not only among us, they are being guided." The council murmured uneasily. Corral stepped forward. "I saw Federation channels being rerouted, messages never reaching Earth, Nerithian diplomats being replaced or silenced. This thing, whatever it is, it's orchestrated decades of mistrust between our people. Do you have evidence?" One of the nobles asked sharply. "We are the evidence," Corral said. "The bond let us see things no device could detect. Patterns, infiltrations, strategies hidden in plain sight." The king steepled his fingers. "If what you say is true, and this changes everything." Kira nodded. "The triad bond wasn't just a cultural accident. Lumina chose us for a reason. She linked a human and a Nerithian, not just emotionally, but psychically, because the threat we face demands unity we've never attempted before." Corral took a breath. "Which is why we're proposing something unprecedented. An alliance. A real one. Open intelligence sharing. Combined defense forces. Integration of energy tech and human engineering. You would make Earth and Nerithia partners," one counselor said in disbelief. "We would make them stronger together." Corral corrected. There was a long silence. Then the king spoke. "I will convene the Grand Conclave. But understand what you ask will face opposition from every corner of tradition, paranoia, and fear." "Good," Corral said. "Let them fear the alternative more." As they exited the chamber, Kira's grip on his hand tightened. "Well," she murmured, "not exactly the honeymoon I imagined." Corral laughed, pulling her close. "Saving 2 civilizations from cosmic annihilation wasn't on my post-wedding checklist either." Lumina trotted ahead of them, tail high, as if satisfied with how her matchmaking had unfolded. "Do you regret it?" Kira asked softly, glancing sideways. Corral slowed, turning to look at her, really look. The way her skin shimmered slightly with every breath, the fire in her eyes, the way her voice filled the cracks in his armor. "Not for a second," he said, "though I do have one complaint." Her brow arched. "Oh?" "If I'd known rescuing a fluffy blue alien cat would get me married into royalty entangled in interstellar conspiracies, I might have brushed my hair first." She laughed head back, eyes bright. "And missed the look on your face when you found out she was mine?" "Never." Lumina chirped smugly, as if in agreement. They reached the royal wing and paused at the doorway to their shared quarters. The glow from the binding ceremony still clung to the air between them. "Where's she going now?" Corral asked, watching Lumina prance past them into the suite. Kira's eyes sparkled. "If I'm not mistaken, to our chambers." Corral raised a brow, the bindings complete. What more could she possibly want? Kira leaned in, her breath brushing his cheek. "In Nerithian tradition, the physical bond strengthens the psychic one." His voice dipped. And in human tradition, that's called a very good idea, she smiled slowly. Then tonight, we follow both. The door melted open. Corral followed her inside, the air already warmer, sweeter, charged with energy he couldn't explain, but now intimately recognized. He glanced at Lumina, curled proudly on the plush divan. You planned this all along, didn't you? The creature blinked at him. Matchmaking luminaries, he muttered. Who knew? And as Kira's arms slid around his waist and their thoughts mingled once more like waves over sand, Corral understood something profound. Sometimes humanity's greatest strength isn't technology or firepower, but a moment of compassion. That changes everything. God, all he'd done was stop to help an injured creature, and that simple act had altered the fate of two worlds. Forever, not the end. The city of Nerithia was a kaleidoscope of sound, light, and movement, a place where physics, bent to aesthetics and gravity, played second fiddle to art. Towering spires reached like crystalline spears toward twin suns, their refracted amber, light cascading down gleaming structures that pulsed with soft internal energy. Bridges floated where no support beams should have held them. Roads curved in spirals instead of straight lines. And through it all flowed a sea of alien life scaled, feathered, tentacled, glowing, conversing in 100 musical dialects that Carl Blackwood couldn't hope to decipher. He kept his hood low, casting a shadow across his unshaven face as he navigated the crowded marketplace, trying to blend into a world where he was the only human for light years. The breathable atmosphere prickled against the environmental filter layered into his scarf. Humid, spiced, and dense, it clung to his skin like silk soaked in citrus. His boots clicked dully on a walkway that responded to footfalls with faint ripples of light. Everything here was alive or pretending to be. Damn diplomatic missions, he muttered, rubbing his temples as he passed a stall selling floating bioluminescent fruit that changed color when touched. Next time, I'm faking. A foot infection. The Federation had sent him as an unofficial observer, which was polite code for spy. His job was simple. Assess Nerithia's readiness for contact and report back. No interference, no attachments, no risks. Just watch, record, and vanish. So, of course, he had started his mission by getting monumentally drunk on Nerithian ale, which turned out to have the viscosity of motor oil and the kick of a dying star. Now, 3 hours into what was easily the worst hangover of his 35 years, Corral ducked into an alley that curved like a spiral shell. The city noises faded. Behind him, replaced by the hum of unseen generators and the gentle hiss of moisture vents. He leaned against the cool, glassy wall and exhaled. That's when he saw it. A flash of movement, small, fast, and frightened, darted between two discarded crates. Corral's hand instinctively reached for the small stun blade at his side, but he didn't draw it. Instead, curiosity cut through the alcohol haze. He stepped forward slowly. In the shadow of the alcove, it lay collapsed. No bigger than a house cat, the creature's fur shimmered with hues of cerulean and silver, like a living gem. 4 delicate legs splayed at odd angles, one clearly injured. Its body trembled. But what stopped him cold were its eyes. Enormous. Luminous orbs that shimmered like liquid opal, locking onto him with startling clarity. "Hey there, little fella," he said softly, crouching. His voice came out hoarse from dehydration. "What happened to you?" The creature chirped a sound somewhere between a purr and a whistle, then whimpered, trying to back away. But pain stopped it, and it crumpled again. Corral looked around. No one else in sight. No vendor calling for their missing pet. No alien rushing in with concern. Just trash bins, shadows, and this strange, broken life form. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, removing his outer jacket. The creature flinched, but didn't run. With slow, deliberate hands, Karai wrapped it gently, careful of the leg. The fur was unbelievably soft, cool to the touch, and the creature pressed weakly against his chest as he lifted it. "All right, Blue," he whispered, giving it a name on impulse. "Let's get you patched up." He didn't notice the faint red blink from the small device embedded beneath the creature's collar, the silent trigger of a royal alert, now racing across the city to the palace security grid. Back in his rented high-rise unit, Kara lay Blue on a clean towel under warm light. The injury was a deep but clean laceration, not life-threatening, but painful. He fetched his field medkit, cleaned the wound with antiseptic foam, and applied a generous layer of regenerative gel. As he improvised a splint from some broken utensils and nanoplast wrap, Blue watched him, never flinching, never blinking. Just watching. "You're something else," Carl muttered, holding out a dish of water. Blue sniffed it, then drank, fast and thirsty. When it finished, it chirped again and crawled to his side, curling up against him with a soft trill. "Well, that's a thank you if I've ever heard one." Blue purred no, not purred, resonated. The sound vibrated faintly through his chest, and for a brief second, Kirill thought he felt something else, a whisper of a feeling that wasn't his. Relief, curiosity, safety. Corral shook his head. "Too much ale, that's all it is." As Blue fell asleep against his side, Corral stared at the city lights beyond the panoramic window. He'd broken protocol, sure, but how could he have left it there? It was just a small, hurt creature. Just a stray, wasn't it? Asterisk, the cell was cooler than he expected. Kirill sat on a narrow bench made from some kind of glassy stone, its surface humming faintly beneath him. His wrists were bound in smooth restraints that adjusted to the size of his limbs with disturbing intelligence. The walls around him shimmered with faint blue light, and there were no visible seams, no panels, no doors. Only a translucent barrier separated him from the corridor outside, where two heavily armored Nerithian guards stood at silent attention, eyes fixed on him. Kirill exhaled slowly, rubbing a knuckle across his beard. This was not how he imagined his mission going. He'd planned to sip bad tea, take long scans, and make occasional cryptic notes in a secure file. Instead, he'd been arrested for royal theft, a term that still sounded insane even inside his own head. He replayed the moment again. The knock on his door, the crash of boots, the gleam of energy weapons. Blue no, Lumina, apparently chirping. From the bed, entirely unbothered, as if she had expected it all. "Some informant you turned out to be," Corral muttered under his breath. The shimmering wall flickered. A low musical chime sounded, and then a voice, smooth and precise, echoed through the chamber. "You will now face the royal inquiry. Prepare yourself. Can I change into something less ... accused?" Corral asked no one in particular, gesturing to his rumpled field gear and stained jacket. No response. A moment later, the barrier dissolved into mist. The guards stepped forward. Neither spoke, but one gestured firmly. Corral stood, lifting his hands slightly in mock surrender. "Easy, gentlemen. I'm walking, see? No sudden moves." They led him down a long corridor that felt like walking through the inside of a living. Gemstone walls pulsed with slow light, casting rippling shadows across polished floors. As they approached the throne chamber, the corridor widened, the air thickening with scent floral, electric, almost ceremonial dot, and then the doors appeared. Two towering slabs of metallic crystal inlaid with shifting veins of silver, carved with glyphs that pulsed in sync with Corral's own heartbeat. The guards spoke a brief phrase in their native tongue, and the doors parted without a sound. The throne room was a temple of elegance and alien grandeur, a glassy dome arched high overhead. revealing a simulated night sky dotted with constellations that slowly rotated in place. The floor was transparent, revealing a glowing subterranean garden of bioluminescent flora. The chamber was silent, reverent, and impossibly still until she moved. Princess Kira rose from her throne. She wore formal robes that shimmered like liquid metal, draped over her tall, statuesque frame. Her skin glowed a soft violet, like candlelight behind frosted glass. Her long silver hair flowed down her back, framing a face that was almost, but not quite, human cheekbones too high, eyes too large, mouth too expressive. Dot in her arms, curled. With perfect confidence rested Lumina. The creature chirped softly upon seeing Corral. Kira stroked it once, then gestured toward the dais with a graceful hand. Approach. Corral swallowed hard and stepped forward, the guards shadowing him but keeping their distance. He stopped at the base of the platform and gave the closest approximation of a bow his stiff back would allow. "Your Highness," he said, his voice gruff but respectful. She studied him for a long moment. "You are the human who took Lumina." "I found her," Corral corrected gently, "in an alley, injured. I gave her aid. You carried her away from where she was meant to be. She was bleeding. Alone. I didn't know she was." He hesitated, glancing at the creature. "Someone's." Kira's gaze sharpened. "She is not someone. She is Lumina, a luminary, a sacred companion of the royal line, chosen at birth, raised in the palace, and bonded only once." Carl frowned. "Bonded?" The princess descended the steps slowly, Lumina still in her arms. Her robes swirled like mist as she approached, each step echoing in the crystalline stillness. When she stood before him, they were nearly eye to eye, her presence as cool and commanding as a blade of polished glass. "A luminary forms a soul link," she said. "It is rare and permanent." Carl's eyes widened. "She? Bonded to me?" Kira's voice dropped. "You feel it, don't you? The connection, the dreams, the sense of another being in your thoughts." He stiffened. "How did you?" "I've shared that bond," she said softly, "since childhood. Until now." Corel looked down at Lumina, who met his gaze with those shimmering opalescent eyes. She chirped once and nestled closer to Kira's chest, but her gaze didn't leave him. "I didn't ask for this," he whispered. "Nor did she," Kira replied. "But it happened, and that changes everything." Behind them, the guards exchanged uneasy glances. The princess turned slightly, her chin tilted in consideration. "There is a tradition. When a luminary chooses two, a triad bond forms. It has happened ... twice in our recorded history." Corral's brows lifted. "What does that mean for me?" Kira's lips curled into something that hovered between a smile and a challenge. "It means, Corral Blackwood, that you are no longer just a visitor. You are part of something sacred, and possibly something dangerous." He opened his mouth to respond, but Lumina leapt from Kira's arms and landed gracefully on Corral's shoulder, purring against his beard. "She approves," Kira said, her voice now tinged with amusement. Corral exhaled slowly. "Great. That makes one of us." Corral Blackwood stood at the edge of his new quarters, staring out through the panoramic window as Nerithia's twin suns sank beneath the shimmering skyline. The city glowed in hues of lavender and gold, each spire catching the fading light like crystalline fingers stretching toward twilight. It should have been beautiful. It was beautiful. But all Corral could feel was the tight coil of tension winding ever deeper inside his chest. He turned away from the window, scanning the space again. The room was luxurious, almost absurdly so. The floor rippled like silk glass under his boots. Furniture bloomed organically from the walls, and the bed was large enough for three. Probably designed for that, he thought grimly. Every surface felt alive, alien, watching. He reached into the satchel he'd been allowed to keep and retrieved. His field sweeper, a small Federation-issue device used to detect surveillance. He swept it slowly across the room. The device hummed once, twice, then glowed red. Bingo.1 bug was embedded in the overhead light fixture. Another in the elegant fruit bowl that had appeared without request. And the third? He found it cleverly, hidden beneath the translucent basin in the bathing chamber. Well, Corral muttered, eyes narrowing, that answers that. He didn't remove the devices. Better to know they were listening. Let them think he was oblivious. It gave him room to move literally and politically. He returned to Sweeper 2. His bag turned just in time to hear the soft chirrup of approaching paws. Lumina padded into the room, tail flicking elegantly, blue fur practically glowing in the ambient light. She leapt gracefully onto a floating shelf and regarded him with what felt like smug satisfaction. You knew about the bugs, didn't you? He said, crossing his arms. Lumina blinked slowly, then turned in a circle and flopped down with a contented purr, the picture of innocence. Corral shook his head, a reluctant smile tugging at his mouth. Your trouble in a tiny blue package. The chime at the door was soft, melodic. Corral froze. Enter, he called cautiously. The door melted. Away. Princess Kira stood in the entryway, now dressed not in royal robes, but in a flowing tunic of silver and deep plum. The fabric clung to her in places and drifted like mist in others. Her silvery hair was unbound, cascading around her shoulders in waves that shimmered with starlight. Without her formal regalia, she looked ... younger, and devastatingly beautiful. I trust your accommodations are satisfactory? She asked, stepping in with that same dancer's grace she carried everywhere. They're bugged, Corral replied bluntly, watching her reaction. Kira didn't flinch. Of course they are. You're a Federation agent in our royal palace. I'd be concerned if our security chief hadn't taken precautions. At least you're honest about it. Honesty between us will be essential, she said, stepping closer. Especially given what Lumina has initiated. Corral raised an eyebrow. Initiated? Kira tilted her head, examining him as if seeing something he hadn't yet noticed about himself. You truly don't know. I know she bonded too. He said, whatever that means. In our culture, when a luminary bonds with two individuals, it creates what we call a triad bond. She paused. It's a sacred phenomenon. Traditionally, it marks the beginning of a courtship ritual. Corral blinked. A what now? Kira's lips curled. Yes, you and I have been entered uninvited into one of our most intimate traditions. Lumina has chosen us both. That's rare. Rare enough that it's considered divine matchmaking. Corral barked a laugh and raked a hand through his hair. Great. So now I'm being married off by a psychic cat. It's more than marriage, she said softly, stepping even closer. The bond allows us to feel one another's emotions ... eventually. It can grow into something very powerful. In my culture, Corral muttered, manipulating someone into a relationship is considered bad form. Kira's gaze darkened. Is that what you think I'm doing? Aren't you? He challenged. She stepped back slightly. For the first time, the cracks in her poise showed. Hurt. Real. Raw hurt. I offered you a position based on Lumina's bond and the political opportunity it presents. The tradition nearly contextualized it. She looked away. I didn't plan for her to choose you, but she did. And that means something to me, whether or not it does to you. Lumina chirped loudly from her perch, then leapt to the floor and pawed at Corral's leg with more force than usual. Kira smiled faintly. I think she's telling you to stop being an ass. Despite himself, Corral laughed. Probably right. He knelt beside Lumina, stroking the fur behind her ears. I'm not saying I'm not interested. I'd have to be blind not to see you're compelling. But where I come from, things like this develop naturally. Not because a glowing fluffball decides we're compatible. Kira stepped close again, her voice soft. Then perhaps we let it develop naturally, while still respecting our traditions. Her fingers brushed his. The touch was cool, electric, dangerous. There's more, she added. If the bond deepens ... it can protect you. From what? From those who see you as a threat. Her expression darkened. There are many. Who do? Carl exhaled slowly. Of course there are. I'll leave you to rest, she said, turning toward the door. But this isn't just politics. I want you to stay. For all the reasons official and otherwise. He watched her go, heart thudding louder than it should have as the door dissolved behind her. Lumina curled around his legs and purred like thunder. Kirill crouched down and whispered, What exactly are you planning, you little matchmaker? Lumina didn't answer, at least not in words. But somewhere deep inside his mind, Kirill felt warmth. A pulse, a presence. Not his own, and he was no longer sure he wanted to push it away. The Temple of Celestial Union rose like a shard of starlight at the highest point in Nerithia's capital, its translucent walls catching the twin moon's glow and scattering it into prismatic beams that lit the surrounding air. From the terrace outside the ceremonial hall, Kirill could see the whole city. It sparkled like a sea of glass and fire. And yet, despite the beauty, he couldn't stop fidgeting with the cuff of his ceremonial robe. The outfit hugged his frame with an unnerving combination of weightlessness and structure. Midnight blue, threaded with silver that shimmered in rhythm. With his heartbeat designed, he suspected, to respond to his emotions. Which was unfortunate, because his nerves were doing backflips. You look nervous, Captain Thor said bluntly, standing to Kirill's left like a looming statue and gleaming. Silver armor, wouldn't you be? Kirill replied, eyes scanning the lower courtyard where robed attendants were arranging glowing crystal fragments into precise circular patterns. Half the court thinks I'm a joke, the other half wants me dead, and in about an hour, I'm going to link souls with a princess and a psychic blue cat in a ritual I barely understand. Thors grunted. I wouldn't be in your position to begin with. No offense taken, Kirill muttered. The captain's eyes stayed on the courtyard, but his tone shifted. You've made an impact. That's rare, even for royalty. Kirill glanced sideways. You approve? Thor said nothing. A soft chirp broke the silence. Lumina had arrived, padding onto the balcony with a calm grace that belied the tension in the air. Her fur glowed in the moonlight, and a newly fitted ceremonial collar shimmered around her neck, matching the silver in Kirill's robe. Hey, troublemaker, Kirill murmured, crouching as she hopped onto the railing. Big day, huh? Lumina responded with a purr and batted gently at his chin like she was calming him. He scratched behind her ears, and for just a moment, the nerves settled. Then she tencd her fur stood on end, ears flattened. A low, alien growl vibrated from her throat. Kirill stood immediately. So did Thor's. Something's wrong, Kirill said, his eyes sweeping the temple's edge. Without another sound, Lumina darted inside, vanishing through the open archway that led into the sanctum. Follow her, Thors ordered, already drawing. His weapon a sleek, angular blade that thrummed with focused energy. They entered the main chamber of the temple. The ceremonial floor was empty now, the attendants gone. The pattern of crystals glowed faintly, casting intricate shadows across the room. And Lumina stood in the center, tail high, body rigid, her glowing eyes fixed on a shadowed alcove. Kirill's skin prickled. She's pointing at something. Show, Yourself, Thors barked. The shadows shifted, and from them emerged a tall, slim figure draped in dark robes that shimmered like oil. Lord Vex. Captain. Human. Vex bowed with mock elegance. Forgive the intrusion. I was merely admiring the preparations. The temple is restricted, Thors said coldly. Until the ceremony. Oh dear, must have slipped my mind. Vex's eyes flicked to the glowing pattern on the floor. Such a lovely ritual. Such delicate energies involved. Would be. A shame if something disrupted them. Corral stiffened. What are you doing here, Vex? Curiosity, Vex said, stepping closer to the crystal array. I've never seen a human participate in the binding before. Such a novelty. Such ... risk. Lumina growled again, circling him, fur bristling. That's when Corral noticed them. Tiny metallic devices, no larger than his thumbnail strategically, placed at several intersections in the glowing crystal lines. What are these? He asked sharply. Vex's smile didn't reach his eyes. Ceremonial enhancements. Traditional. Bullshit, Carl snapped. Lumina wouldn't be reacting like this if they were harmless. Vex moved in a blur, producing a weapon from beneath his robes. Corral barely had time to process it before Thor stepped between them, his own weapon aimed and humming. Don't be foolish, Thor said. I'm not foolish, Vex replied calmly. I'm faithful. To Nerithia. To purity. To tradition. This farce, this union threatens everything we stand for. You'd kill your own princess to stop a diplomatic alliance? Corral said, stunned. A regrettable sacrifice, Vex said, his tone cool, but one the people will understand in time. Corral lunged, the weapon discharged as he tackled. Vex to the floor. A bolt of energy sizzled over Thor's shoulder, punching a hole through the temple's vaulted ceiling. They grappled fiercely, Vex's strength fueled by fanaticism, Corral's by adrenaline and fury. He drove a fist into the noble's jaw, then twisted the weapon from his hand and pinned him with a knee. Thors, he shouted. The devices. I can't disarm them. Thors called back, crouching over one. They're keyed to Vex's. Biometrics. Vex laughed beneath Corral. Exactly. You stop me, they detonate. Kill me, they detonate. Choose wisely, human. Then Lumina moved. She leapt onto Vex's chest, her eyes blazing with a light Corral had never seen before. Vex went rigid. What is it doing? He choked, panic replacing arrogance. Deep scan, Thors whispered. Luminaries can do it. But it's invasive. Vex screamed. I see everything, he gasped. The memories. It's in my head, make. It stop. Deactivate the devices, Corral growled. I can't with her in do it. Lumina chirped sharply, and the nearest device powered down. Thors blinked. She extracted the code. She's disabling them. One by one, Lumina moved across the chamber. With each touch, a device shut down until the last one faded to black with a soft click. Carl rolled off Vex, breathing hard. The noble curled into himself, shaking, his eyes wide and unfocused. You don't understand, Vex whispered. They'll come. From beyond the veil. They warned us. If we allow. The bond, Corral looked at Thors. Take him to the king. And secure those devices. We'll need proof. As the guards arrived, and Vex was led away in restraints, Lumina padded over to Corral and nestled against his leg. You saved us again, he whispered, stroking her fur. She purred, modest as ever. Then Kira burst into the chamber, her ceremonial robes trailing behind her like mist. What happened? She demanded, eyes wide with alarm. Corral stood, dusting off his robes. Your guest list needs updating. Kira looked around, took in the damage, the still glowing crystal floor, and the hole in the ceiling. He tried to sabotage the binding? Tried. Corral said, failed. She moved to him, hands cupping his face, her voice trembling. You could have died. Occupational hazard of dating royalty. Her response was a kiss, fierce, grateful, real, and when they broke apart, she pressed her forehead to his. You still want to do this? She whispered. Corral glanced down at Lumina, then back at Kira. More than ever. Asterisk, the Temple of Celestial Union, shimmered like a beacon in the night. Twin moons hung directly overhead, their light flowing through the temple's dome and catching the repaired crystal patterns on the floor. It was like standing inside a living constellation light, energy and reverence braided together in sacred symmetry. Corral Blackwood stood at the center of it all, his ceremonial robe rustling gently in the soft wind created by the slow-motion pulse of the crystal patterns beneath his boots. He looked calm on the surface, but under the elegant layers of silk and stardust, his heart pounded across the chamber. Princess Kyra of House Nerithia approached in silence. She wore a gown woven of translucent starlight, the silver threads glowing with subtle pulses that matched her breathing. Her violet skin radiated a soft inner light, and her long silver hair drifted behind her like a comet's tail. She looked ethereal, regal, untouchable until she smiled. And in that smile, Corral saw the woman who had whispered his name in the dark, who had leaned into his touch with eyes half-lidded in wonder, who had trusted him enough to share her culture, her fears, and now her soul between them. Poised at the heart of the glowing crystal array, Lumina sat with practiced serenity. Fur had been groomed to perfection. Her ceremonial collar pulsed softly in time with the crystal matrix, and her wide, opalescent eyes held something ancient. Something. Watching, King Thisher presided from an elevated platform, flanked by silent nobles and armored guards. His voice echoed through the temple, speaking in the melodic cadence of the Nerithian tongue. The language was unfamiliar to Corral, but he felt the meaning in his bones. Unity, trust, the joining of destinies. Then the king spoke in the common tongue. The time of binding is upon us. Corral looked to Kira. She extended her hand, palm upward, fingers relaxed. Are you ready? She asked softly. He took her hand. As I'll ever be. The moment their palms touched, the crystal floor erupted with light. It wasn't harsh or blinding, more like being wrapped in heatless fire. Colors shifted in impossible gradients. A hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones. Lumina stood and chirped once, the sound echoing in 3 distinct harmonics. Your hands upon the luminary, the king instructed. Corral and Kira knelt, mirroring each other across Lumina's compact, glowing form. They reached out in unison, laying one hand each on the creature's back. The effect was immediate. Corral gasped as a jolt of energy surged up his arm, not painful, but overwhelming, like plunging into water that was alive. Images burst behind. His eyes Kira as a child, receiving Lumina in a royal ceremony, her laughter echoing in crystal gardens. The bond they'd shared. The heartbreak when Lumina vanished. Then new images layered over those as memories. Earth skies. The first time he touched a starship console, sitting alone on shuttle rides across deep space. 1,000 lonely moments he never knew were empty until Kira entered them. But it didn't stop there. Suddenly, Kira's presence wasn't beside him. It was inside him. A cool, radiant consciousness brushing against his own. Emotions flooded in. Calmness, warmth, curiosity, even a flutter of arousal. And then she felt him feeling her. There was no hiding here. No pretending. Corral? Her voice was in his thoughts now. Not a sound, but a presence formed into words. I hear you, he thought, stunned by the clarity. This is insane. No, she replied. This is sacred. The connection deepened. Lumina chirped again, and their minds fell further inward, merging. Into something more. The temple vanished. Corral floated in a space without edges, tethered only by the light of Kira's thoughts and Lumina's rhythmic pulses. The sensation was indescribable, not just awareness, but synthesis. They were no longer three separate entities. They were one shared experience, one heartbeat. And in that shared mindscape, something shifted. A veil parted. Beyond their bond. Beyond the temple, beyond the reach of Nerithian sensors or Federation probes, something watched. An ancient presence. Cold, vast, patient. Kira gasped through the bond. Greater than what is that? It's been waiting, Carl replied, his thoughts shaky. Watching. Manipulating. Images flashed in their joined minds, massive alien fleets hiding at the edge of known space. Signals intercepted and rerouted. Puppet agents placed within both the Federation and Nerithian hierarchy. Vex had been a pawn. There were others. They want us divided, Kira realized. Because together, we're strong enough to stop them. A wave of darkness surged toward their bond testing, probing, trying to sever the connection. Lumina responded first. Her consciousness expanded like a shield, a shimmering barrier of thought and memory that pushed back the invasive force. For the first time, the ancient presence recoiled. They had been discovered. Carlyle, Kira, and Lumina projected one thought in unison. We see you, and we are not afraid. The darkness withdrew, not defeated, but wary, as if it had touched something it didn't expect to find. Then, with a sudden rush of clarity, the temple came back into focus. The light dimmed. The warmth faded to a steady hum. Corral found himself kneeling beside Lumina, his hand still on her back, Kira's fingers still twined in his. The king's voice came through the silence, solemn and firm. It is done. Rise, Princess Kira and Consort Corral Blackwood, bound by the sacred triad. They stood together. Hand in hand. Change. Forever. Car. Lee looked into Kira's eyes. The connection between them remained a soft pulse of presence in the back of his thoughts, like a second heartbeat. And hers mirrored his. Quiet, comforting, unbreakable. We need to speak with your father, he said quietly. Immediately. Kira's smile was slow and grim. Yes, the threat is real, and it's closer than we ever imagined.